Welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast, where we talk about setting up your own location, independent business, moving to a better country, or at least setting up an international backup plan and doing all these things for very little money. Just so you are aware, I have another podcast called the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast, where we discuss masculine lifestyle for men. And that is available over at alphamale20.com. And you can click podcast and you can subscribe to all the usual podcast platforms. Just be aware, I say some controversial shit over there, okay, about dating multiple women and open marriages. And so if that's not your thing, you don't feel compelled to subscribe. It's a very different podcast. But anyway, I do that podcast every week, plus this podcast every week. So there you go. Today, I'm going to talk about the one excuse that I accept when people say, but I can't move out of my collapsing Western country. I can't move out of the US or Canada. I can't move out of Europe because I can't. 99.9%, maybe 99%. 99% of people who say this to me are full of shit. Every time I corner these people and say, why can't you fucking baby? They give me a bullshit excuse. Well, I have a job here. Well, I have investments here. Well, no, so what? You can still move. I didn't say move out of the country tomorrow morning. I didn't even say do it next month. I said do it. If you need to plan this out over the next 6 months and figure this out, 8 months, then fucking do it. Great. Moving out of the collapsing Western world in a year is much better than sitting there forever because you think you can't because you're a little beta bitch and you're making all kinds of bullshit excuses. Don't get me started on that. But that being said, and I've mentioned this before, I've been consistent about this, there is one excuse that is valid. It's the only excuse that I've ever seen that is valid. And that is this. Hey man, I want to leave the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe. I want to get the hell out of here, but I have small children and I'm no longer with the mom and I can't just take the kids away because they're with her half the time or most of the time. And so I would abandon my kids, and I don't want to do that. Okay, finally, a valid excuse to a degree. And so I'm going to discuss that in this podcast. You guys who have small children. Now, as always, I have to be very clear and specific about this. You have small children, not grown children, not even older teenage children. I have children. My son is 30 and my daughter's 23. Okay, my children are grown. I'm older than I look. As Aragorn said in Lord of the Rings, I'm older than I look. So I have old kids. So my kids are grown. So that's not an excuse. They're grown. So if you have grown kids, I'm sorry, motherfucker. That is an excuse and it's a bullshit excuse. And there is a video I have at my Sovereign CEO YouTube channel where I discuss the thing of, but what about my family? We're discussing adult family members. You should watch that video if you are all squeamish about, I don't want to leave my children who are in their 30s. Excuses, God. Anyway, so I'm talking here about you have small children. Your children are like 8 years old, 5 years old, babies, maybe 12 years old. If they're 17, 18 years old, that's a gray area for me. I don't know. Certainly if they're over the age of 18, no, that is no longer an excuse. They're adults now. You can still financially support them and be their dad from afar. I have no problem being on the other side of the planet from my children. And frankly, I'm lucky. One of my kids has already left the Western world. My son lives in Mexico. Spends a lot of time in Thailand too. And my daughter actively wants to leave the United States and she's working on that now. So shortly, both of my children will be out of the collapsing Western world. They make a daddy proud. And no, I didn't tell them to do this. I'm Alpha Male 2.0. I don't tell anybody to do anything. I focus on myself. So that's the scenario, is that you have small children and you're kind of stuck as to what to do. What are your options in this scenario? So let's go through this. That means that there are one of four scenarios that you're dealing with when you have kids and you want to leave your country. Okay, the first scenario is probably the easiest one. You are still with the mother. You're married to her or your boyfriend, girlfriend, and you're together, living together, raising the kids together. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is you are not with the mother of the children or child. Okay, and this is irrelevant to the number of kids, by the way. You could have 1 kid, 3 kids, I don't care the number. Let's just call them children, even if you have 1 kid. You are not with the mother, but for some odd reason, and I'm assuming, by the way, let me backtrack. I'm assuming you're a man, and if you're a woman, I apologize. The vast majority of people who consume this content are men, so I'm going to make the assumption you're a man. Please don't be offended if you're a woman. If you're a woman, just change man to woman, okay? Okay. So the second scenario is you're a man, and you're not with the wife, and you're not with the mom anymore, but for some reason you were able to swing this, you have full custody of the kid. You have the legal right to take the kid out of the country. The kid is fully with you. Very rare scenario, but it does happen. So that's the second possible scenario. Third possible scenario is that, and this is very unlikely, probably even more unlikely, is that you are not with the mom, you have joint custody, or she has most of the custody, but you have somehow convinced her to move out of the country with you. We'll address that a little bit. So she's willing to move out of the country with you, even though she's not with you, as in a relationship, but she's willing to move to the same country with you to maintain that link to her children with her dad, okay? Extremely unlikely, okay, but that is a possibility. The last possibility, and by far the most common one I hear from you guys, is that you are not seeing the mom, you do not have full custody, you have either no custody or partial custody, and the mom doesn't want to leave, okay? Which she probably doesn't. She wants to stay in her collapsing Western country because she's either dumb or she doesn't care or she doesn't pay attention to these things for whatever reason. Okay, so we need to address all these different categories. I'm just going to buzz through the ones that are least likely, and we'll cover the one that is most likely. So let's cover the first one really quick. You are married and or have a live-in girlfriend and you have children. Can I move out of the country when I have kids? Yes. Tim Ferriss, many years ago, back when he was talking more about these topics, when he was doing the 4-hour work week thing, profiled on his blog back then, and the articles were probably still there, I haven't looked, many, many families who moved out of the United States and would move to South America, Asia, China, sometimes Eastern Europe. In some crazy cases, they'd move to Africa, or they would live on a boat, like a family of 4. I've seen YouTube videos of like a family of 4, a mom and dad and 2 little kids who live on a boat full time and they just boat around the world. Crazy. It can be done. The way you get that done is you have to homeschool your kids, ideally. You don't have to homeschool them, but if you do homeschool them, that solves a lot of problems. Or else you're going to have to factor in, where do the kids go to school? Is the place we're moving to, does it have good schools? How much do they cost? Are they available to people when you are a non-citizen resident or a non-resident? It gets very, very complicated with this if you are not homeschooling the kids. By the way, side point, I believe if you have kids today, good luck. But if you have little kids today, you better homeschool them. I can tell you for a fact, if I had children today, I already have my kids, I'm done. But if I had children today, no question about it, they would be homeschooled. There is no way in hell I am putting my kids in the traditional private school system or public school system, particularly in the Western world today. Are you insane? I'm not going to fuck my kids and brainwash them that way. Hell to the no. And if the woman I was talking to about getting married or settling down with didn't want to do that, she'd be out the door and I'd find somebody else. My opinion. So in my strong opinion, you should homeschool the kids anyway. But that's neither here nor there. Certainly, if you're going to move out of the country with your kids, you want to homeschool those kids. Beyond that, you just have the logistics involved of getting legal residency for everyone in your family, yourself, your wife, and your children. In many countries, not all, but in many of them, they will automatically grant residency, especially if you're legally married, I'll cover that in a second, to your children once you are granted residency. Matter of fact, there are several places in the Caribbean where if you get a passport and you're legally married, they automatically give your wife a passport too. Cool. And your kids' passports if they're under the age of 18. Really fucking cool. That's definitely something I would look at if I was in your scenario. But again, depends how much money you have and all that good stuff. Also, I can tell you for a fact that, and this is unfortunate because I advise men to not get legally married in my other Alpha Male 2.0 content, but I just got to give you the facts here. It will be helpful for you when you move abroad for residency and banking and things like that to show that you are legally married to your special lady, okay? If you don't want to get legally married, please don't. You shouldn't. The divorce rate's too high. You can go to my Alpha Male 2.0 content for all the stuff I talk about over there about that. So don't do that. I'm just giving you the reality that if you can show a legal marriage certificate that is apostilled, that is somehow certified from your country to the new country, it opens a lot of doors for you. I've talked to a lot of guys about this who are married, and I've talked to a lot of guys who are not married. And so it gets complicated when it's not. I'm not saying it's not doable. I'm saying it's just easier. So just you keep that in mind. Also, by the way, I could do a whole podcast on this. Maybe I should do this over my Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. When you are legally married and you have an enforceable prenup, it protects your assets a lot more if you're offshore, if you're no longer living in your Western country and all your assets are offshore. I not only have a rock solid enforceable prenuptial agreement with my wife, who I never plan on divorcing, love her to death, but all my assets are either offshore or they're stateless, like cryptocurrency and precious metals and things like that. I have literally no American assets other than some bank accounts that are transitional bank accounts. I don't keep any assets in the United States. So food for thought there as well. I would strongly recommend, if this is your scenario, if you are with your wife or your girlfriend and you have kids together, that you do research on YouTube. There's lots of YouTube channels of families with small kids who live abroad, who have moved abroad. As a matter of fact, there's so many options for this. You could literally like pick a country. So let's say you're planning moving to, I don't know, Georgia, the country of Georgia. You can Google Georgia family moved from US and you might be able to find something. Maybe, maybe not. But otherwise, there are lots of other YouTube channels, lots of resources for you. There's lots of blogs about this, lots of forums about this. It's very easy to do research on how do I handle having small kids when I move abroad. Beyond that, I couldn't give you specifics because it's been a very long time since I've had small children. My children were small a long time ago, but not lately. So let's move to the second category, which is pretty straightforward. You are a single dad. So you have your kids, you have full custody of your kids, you can just take your kids away, no big deal. Same thing as I talked about before. I would strongly recommend if you do that you get residency, whatever residency you're getting, make sure you get for your kid. What a wonderful gift to give to your children. Residency in another country, even if you can pull off permanent residency for your kids, but again, that's not a big difference. And certainly if you really want to go crazy and you have the wherewithal to do this, and you have the time and or the money to do this, get a second passport for yourself and get that for that kid too. What a fucking gift you could give your kids. A passport. I wish I could give that to my kids. They're too old now. But would it be amazing if you could go to the Caribbean and go get yourself a passport, whip out, $130,000, $150,000, give yourself a passport and they automatically award one to your kid. Pretty cool. Extra paperwork and stuff, but it's worth it. So definitely do that. And beyond that, the logistics are kind of the same as what I said earlier. Obviously, you have to address the relationship with your baby mama. I don't know what else term to call these women. Baby mama, mother of your child. If you guys are amicable, you could discuss it with her. If you're not, then you could just take the kid, I guess. As long as you're legally allowed to do so, please do not break the law. Please don't do that. Please, please, please. As always, I do not condone, endorse anything illegal. Ever, ever, ever. Please follow the law. And by the way, you should do that. So if you have full custody or the majority custody of your kid or whatever, and you want to leave the country with that kid, okay, definitely make a phone call to your family attorney or a family attorney in your city and have the paperwork handy and ask him or her, hey, am I within the law to do this? Because this is what I want to do. And if they say, yep, you're good, they check over your paper, yep, you're good, great. If they say, well, then you better figure that out. Don't fudge this thing. Don't risk this stuff. Now, let's give the very unlikely scenario that you are estranged from the mom. She has physical custody or 50% custody or most custody or what have you, and you have somehow convinced her to leave the country. So let's talk about that. First, let's rewind and let's say that you want to do this and you haven't talked to the mother about this. So let's say you are not in this scenario, you haven't convinced her yet. That's step one for you. So step one, if you have small kids, you're not with the mom anymore, she has half custody or full custody, and you want to leave. Step one is to be very nice to mama, take her out to lunch, okay, sit her down and go through all the stuff that I talk about here at this channel and all the other resources you have. Hey, are you happy in the United States? Is this a country you like? Is this a country making you happy right now? All the chaos going on. And well, no. Well, you know what? I have an idea. I think I have an idea that I might, don't say you're doing it. See, I might move to blank country and then pull up your tablet or your laptop and show her really cool pictures of the country you're going to. Make it into like a Disney fantasy for her. I'm going to this country, and you know what? You know what we could do? If you want, you could move there too. You could move with me. We'll have to live together. That's fine. But you could live in the same city. I could live in the city, and blah, blah, blah. I could support you financially if you're able to do that. I can support you financially with a child support or what have you. I can do this and this and this. That's another thing too. You can also bribe the chick, right? You can say, well, I pay this amount of child support right now, but if you move to this country with me, I'll throw in an extra blank per month, as long as you're there. Pretty cool. You could live this exotic, cool city that, everyone will think you're cool because you live this cool city. You should see all of my wife's friends who are still in the United States. Whenever she posts anything on her Instagram page or Facebook about Dubai, her friends go crazy. Like, oh my God, it's so cool. You're living a dream life. I wish I could do that. Blah, 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 blah. You can show her examples of that. Other women who have done this, and all the other women kiss their ass, because women's big fantasy is to travel. That's a big fantasy for women. Men too, but certainly for women. So if you live in another country, your odds of success are low. Okay, I'm just telling you up front. The odds are she's going to say, no, but my mom lives here, and my sister, and my best friend, and all that bullshit, okay? My mom will get mad because, little Johnny won't be able to hang out with his grandma. So your odds of success are very low, but that is still step one. It's worth a try, okay? God forbid, worst case scenario, she brings her mom with her, right? There's all kinds of scenarios you could work out. And as always, the more money you make, the easier this is. Money solves all problems. If you want to throw around a little more money to bring grandma along, fucking do that too. Depends on how much money you have. If you don't have a lot of money, then you got to work on your persuasion skills and just cross your fingers. But again, odds are low. I'm just saying give it a shot. It's worth a try. So let's say she says no, which she probably will, okay? She says no. So now you're in this scenario. What do you do? What are your options? You want to leave. You don't want to leave your kid, which I understand. What are your choices? So you have several options. Option one is you just leave and you don't see your kid very often. Probably not an option for you if you're asking this kind of question. There are some men who are, through various circumstances, and I'm not going to judge you because I know some of these scenarios get complicated where you really can't see your kid and there's not much you can do about it. And so if you leave the country, you don't see the kid anyway, but you wouldn't see the kid anyway if you were there. That might make things easier for you. It horrifies me that men do this and don't raise their kids, but I understand that sometimes they're a weird scenario. So I'm not gonna go into detail about that. But if that's your scenario, great, this is easier for you. But if you're the normal dad, you wanna spend time with your kid, it's probably not an option for you to leave, right? And then never see your kid again, or only see your kid on Christmas or what have you. So let me give you another scenario, okay? Instead of leaving 12 months out of the year, you just spend a lot of time abroad, maybe 6 months a year, 4 months a year, 8 months a year. And so that way you still have many months a year to go back to your home country and spend time with your kid. Is that just as good as being with your kid year round? No, but at least you're getting a foothold in both worlds. You're building up your flags and your backup bases outside of the collapsing Western country in which you are in. So now you're good to go there and you're able to spend a lot of time with your kid, months and months and months and months a year. That's pretty good. And I would also argue that when you are away from your kid for a while and you come back to your kid, you're like the exciting hero. Oh, dad's back. I haven't seen dad in 6 weeks. This is so fun. And they look forward to seeing you. Very similar to when I talk about my dating advice, where you only see a woman once a week. And the reason you do that is because she's excited to see you next week because it's been 5 days since she's seen you instead of seeing you every day and she can start getting bored with you. Similar dynamic. Now, I'm not saying that that's equivalent parenting. Well, Caleb, you can't equate the parenting of a dad who's there every week to a dad who's only there 4 months a year. No, I'm not equating it. I'm not. I understand you're making a sacrifice by doing this. Believe me, I understand. I raised 2 kids. I have 2 chapters in my primary book, The Unchained Man, alphamalebook.com, on raising children. It's a very big, important thing for me. So I'm not equating it. I'm saying it's a valid option for you. You're not abandoning your kid when you do that, right? You spend months and months and months a year with your kid. You're not abandoning anybody, right? Here's another aspect of this scenario. If you're on good terms with the baby mama, and I know that's a big if for some of you. I know that's a big if. Hey, I was divorced too a billion years ago. And so we don't talk. We haven't talked in over a decade, the mother of my children. So I understand shit happens. I understand people don't get along and things like that. But if you are on good relations with the mother, in following this plan, you can, when you go back to your country, your new country, your non-Western country that isn't collapsing, you can bring your kid with you. Work it out with her, okay? Bring your kid with you. Have them stay with you for a week or two, especially in the summer months. Awesome. Again, what a gift you could give to your child to expose him or her to the world. I mean, I wish my parents could have done that for me. My parents didn't have any money, so they couldn't do that when I was a kid. But I wish that someone had done that for me. And what a wonderful gift, again, that you could give your kid. Bring them along with you if you can. Show your kids the world. So cool. Now, one thing about that, if they're under the age of about 4, I don't advise that. I think that's a very stupid idea. Make sure they're at least 5, 6 years old, at least maybe 6, because I made this mistake once. When my kids were little, and I was still married to their mother, the 4 of us went to Disneyland. And back then it was a big expensive trip for me to pull this off, to fly all those people to Disneyland. I made a lot less money back then, and it kind of stressed me out. And my daughter was 3 years old. And when we got back, within a year, she forgot everything because she was 3. Do you remember shit when you were 3? No. So she has no memory of going to Disneyland, even though we took her to Disneyland when she was 3. So we kind of wasted the trip. So don't do that with your kids. If your kids are really little, don't bring them to, Armenia or or Colombia or, Thailand or Vietnam. Don't do that, okay? Wait till they're older, at least 5 or 6. Then they'll appreciate it. They'll remember it. It'll be a fun adventure for them. Now, let's say you don't even want to do that. Look, Caleb, I don't want to be away from my child that long. I can't do it. I can't do it. All right, great. The least bad option, this is very bad, I don't recommend this, but it's an option for you, is depending on how old your kids are, you put it in this spreadsheet of when the kid turns 18. Matter of fact, I did this. I did a variation of this myself. I did not leave the country until my kids were 18, okay? So, but I wanted to make sure they were at least 18, 19, both kids. So my son is a lot older than my daughter. But I want to make sure, so my son was off on his own. My daughter was at least 18, 19 years old and somewhat settled before I left the country. You could do something similar. You could say, all right, I'm stuck here until this year. So let's say you have, I don't know, let's say you have a son and he's 12. All right, let's say. So that means you've got 6 years to fart around in the collapsing USA or cuckoo Canada or suicidal Europe or authoritarian Australia. You're just going to have to suck it up, grit your teeth, put up with it. And the split second he turns 18, moves out of the house or what have you, okay, he's settled, you get the hell out of there. Which means during that 6-year period, very similar to what I did, you set all this up. You can still travel 2-3 weeks at a time, okay, on trips to set up your residencies, set up your backup plans, set up your bank accounts, set these things up. So the split second he's ready, your son is ready and he's a man, you can bug the fuck out of there. You don't spend another 6 years trying to figure all this out, okay? I don't recommend that because I've said this 10,000 times, I'll say it again. With every year that passes, Five Flags becomes more difficult. All these countries that are easy now, Armenia, Paraguay, Panama, well, not Panama anymore, Mexico, will become more and more difficult over time. And if you wait 6 years, you may not be able to find a place to move to unless you are very wealthy. Again, if you're very wealthy, do whatever you want, as I always say. But if you're not very wealthy, you need to get started on this stuff now as soon as you can. That's why I lead in the direction of spend several months out of the country, building up these bases, building up these residencies, passports if you need to, okay, plan B options, what have you, while still spending a lot of time with your kid. But if you say, look, I just can't do that on an emotional level, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I get it. Well, Caleb, you waited. How come I can't wait? Because when I waited, the collapse wasn't in earnest. I was waiting in the 2010s when things weren't quite as bad. I wouldn't wait now. I wouldn't do it. And I'm being honest with you. If I was in the scenario now, I'm being 100% honest. If I was in a scenario now where I had small children, a girl and a boy like I have now, but they were little. They were like, 10 years old and 7 years old, or whatever the hell it is. I would choose that option. I would be out of the countries for several months a year. And I would be building up my flags, spending time there, setting up my bases, but I'd still spend a lot of time with my kids when I came back to the collapsing USA months and months and months a year. Not just Christmas, but a long time. I would do that. I would do that now. If it was 2022 and I was in that scenario, that's what I would do. I'm being honest with you. Back when I did it, it was not 2022, it was 2012. It's a long time ago, and things were not nearly as bad in 2012 as they were today. So I'm just giving you my opinion here and my bias. This is a very big topic. If there are more questions about this or other scenarios that I have not covered, let me know, and I can certainly do a follow-up podcast on this topic. I will see you very soon. Have fun. Bye.